Hello everyone, Josephine here. Welcome back to a new project. Today I want to share with you some ATC cards that I made using Viva VegaStamps, of course. And I started out with a big sheet of paper and some paper artsy paints. And as you can see, I just simply dabbed the paints on top of the paper, trying not to squeeze too much paint out of it. That's kind of the tricky part here. Similar to monoprinting, if you've done that before, it's about the same amount of paint. And then I just scrape it all over the paper using an old hotel key, but you can also use like a credit card or a gift card, whatever you have laying around that has kind of a straight shape. And then while some of the paint was still wet, I'm just adding a few marks here by, just putting the credit card on top of it. Then I dry it real quick. Paper artsy paints are chalk paint, so they dry in general really fast, but I just wanted to make sure that it's all set. And then I cut it down into 2.5 by 3.5 size, which is the size of ATCs. And a big sheet of paper usually gives you nine pieces at the end of the day, and that's what I'm doing here. And because it's a bit wider, so if you would take 3 times 3.5, 3 times 2.5, you have a little border left. So I'm picking kind of the areas that I really liked of that piece. So next up, a trick that I learned from Seth Apter. If you kind of bundle them up randomly, you can create really nice random patterns, and that's what I wanted. So first of all, I love the Viva Las Vegas stamps mark making, like any of the background stamps or mark making stamps, things that have stripes on it or stars or just marks of all kind. And I have a bunch of those, and I love to use those interchangeably. And as you can see, I'm just stamping it randomly all over the place without really thinking about it. I'm using archival ink because at this point, I actually didn't know yet if I wanted to add anything else on top of it. So I wanted to make sure it's all water resistant. And then I'm using just some lighter paint and add a few more handmade marks to it. So now I thought, well, some of the areas are still a little bit wet. So let's see if embossing powder sticks to it, if it's wet enough for embossing powder to stick to it. So I'm using, this is a copper and it has a little bit sparkle in it too. And I'm just adding it randomly on top of the ATC cards, and then I'm heat setting it. So some of the areas where I use the paint and some of the areas where I stamped images now have embossing powder on top of it, and it just adds a nice little shine. So next up, I'm taking that big round stamp. It's kind of an astrology, is that the right word, sign? And as you can see, I'm arranging the 4 of the ATCs a little bit, so 4 of them get a corner of that big circle on top of it. And then I'm taking some of the more doodly looking mark making stems. I feel like I'm describing it really weird. By the way, all the stems are listed down below, so you'll find all the names down below. And I'm just adding a few more shapes on top of it. Darker colors this time because now I'm starting to work on more the foreground pieces or pieces that I want to be seen, that I want to stand out from the background originally. So yeah, I tried to use like darker colors. And I also stamped with a sepia ink some of the crosses because I wanted to have a color that matches that copper embossing powder, so it's not kind of as alone there. And then I'm just adding my own marks again, using a white acrylic pen. This is a PBO pen, and then just some doodling on top of it. And because Didi created a lot of those mark making stems, or she put those designs together, and I love her videos on mark making and all that stuff, so I'm kind of mirroring her style a little bit by following the outlines of the stems and then adding random doodling on top of it because I love the stems that have the doodling around of it. So here I added my own. So next up, I thought, you know what? I have so much washi tape. Why am I not trying to use this all the time? So I made an effort, yes, to get out washi tape and use it for my ATC cards. And that washi tape is kind of a little bit different. It has like a tissue consistency, if you will. It's a little bit thinner and the background shines through. So it's not a thick paper. And it adheres a little bit different than washi tape. But I'm adding a variety of those just around the borders and just randomly all over the place. And because they have like a tissue-like consistency, they fall nicely into the background. So next up, I stamped 3 of the images, 2 from Brian Kazinga and the other is the mermaid. I end up using only the 2 images from Brian Kazinga, and I'm coloring them with those are the Dina Wakley scribble sticks, and as you can see, it's a really sloppy coloring, so I'm not putting much effort in it because I'm not a huge fan of coloring. I did a long time ago, but now it's more like okay, I want to give it the idea that there's color on it, but not be really precise. I'm sorry, that's just me. I much rather make a huge mess instead of actually focusing on details and stuff. So, and originally I stamped those images and then cut it with my Scan and Cut. But once I colored it, I actually realized I don't like the white border around it, so I ended up fussing cutting it anyway. Well, there it is. And then I'm trying to look through the 9 ATCs to see where those 2 images fit in. And originally, so I mean, to be honest, I had no idea where I was going when I was started. I just knew I wanted to do some sort of ATCs and some sort of marks in the background. And then once I had ATCs and kind of started with images, the idea was to get like die cuts and like, you know, those paper dolls and stuff like that. But as you will see at the end of the day, I actually only used those 2 and not anything more. So, but I picked the one ATC that I wanted to use for the lady with the octopus and added a little bit lighter color on top of it. I diluted it quite a bit with water because I wanted to have some sort of I wanted it to be a little bit lighter than the background, so to set it apart where she is going to live, but I didn't want it to be like too stark from a contrast perspective. So I just gave it kind of some sort of a wash, and then I adhered the octopus girl. I think the octopus name is Oscar. I'm not 100% sure. And I adhered everything just using my Tombow adhesive because I don't have too much texture going on. It's more all paint, and the embossing powder is, while it is textured, it's rather flat, so it works pretty fine. All right, while that is drying, I'm picking the next ATC for my shark mermaid lady. And adhere her to the piece of my card. And then while I was doing that, I was thinking about some sort of sentiments that I could add on top of it. So I picked up one of the, I think it's a Dilutions coloring book kind of sentiment from, yeah, it's some sort of coloring book where I cut it out. And then I realized this sentiment is way too big for this ATC. While it is interesting if it would like stand out that far, it's also kind of weird. So I decided to create a little folding element, so adhering 2 of the ATCs together using some tissue tape, just adhering that onto the back end, and then adding the second ATC next to it, and I'm leaving just a teensy gap next to it because for a short second I thought maybe I could do like a folding book. I left it at 3 ATCs, but for a short second I thought this could be a really interesting folding book. And that in order for it to actually fold, you need to leave just a small gap between the 2 cards so it actually can fold together. So after I adhered the 2 pieces with my ladies and then a third piece in the middle together with that tissue tape, I'm adding a contrasting paint to the sentiment. And I'm kind of, so my favorite contrasting colors, complementary colors for that matter, are blue and some sort of peachy orange coral, like that area of orange, and I love the contrast of the 2. So that's why I already colored the lady with Oscar with a pinkish, you know, peachy shade, and that's the reason why I added peachy color, coral color to the sentiment itself, so it stands out really nicely. And then I had some paint left over on my brush, so I'm actually adding a little bit of that leftover paint from the brush to several areas of the card. So first of all, her hair, and then just, I don't know, randomly everywhere to add, you know, leftover paint. We don't want to lose it kind of thing. And to add the color just on other places on the ATC. So once that was done, I'm pretty much just finishing it out. I wanted to add a little bit more shadow around the ladies. I'm making sure it all folds nicely. Here you can see how it would look folded. And I was still thinking like, should I do the book? And I decided not to in this case and just leave it as it and have it kind of like a, you know, like one of those images where you have 3 parts with a gap in between, and then you can like pop it up somewhere or something. That was kind of the idea for this one. And I think it's actually really nice. It's not too much, you know, it's, I think, actually a really nice composition, if you will. So, and then there's, again, final touch is adding a little shade around the two girls. And that's pretty much it for my project here for VegaStamps. So I hope you enjoyed my ATCs. By the way, I'm keeping the 6 that I haven't touched yet. I'm keeping those, and I'm doing something with them later. Because sometimes it's good to have, you know, backgrounds ready so you can do some focal point work and then you're good to go. So I'll definitely keep those and will not throw them away. Plus, I really love the colors and the copper embossing powder, so I might have some other ideas on a different day on what I can do with them. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed my project. Feel free to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. There are some great projects all the time coming out. And then I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks for watching. Bye!